Yeah, I make games, and I'm your host, Miziziziz, with co-hosts Breogan Hackett and Adam Pype. And this week we're joined by Sean Noonan. So, Sean, what do you do?
Yeah, I make games.
This episode's sponsor says, join a union, elect a works council, and form a worker co-op. If you'd like to sponsor an episode so we can keep doing this, DM me on Twitter. You're, I think, the first person we've had on who's actually worked on AAA games before. How do you think that compares to indie?
Well, I guess I've just got into indie technically. So far, it's been... Well, I mean, it's been quite a few months. It's kind of hard to tell because of lockdown, right? But yeah, it's different not being in an office. But then I guess that's everyone now. It's kind of weird with it coinciding with lockdown because I guess everyone was kind of in a similar experience anyway. But working with a significantly smaller team is obviously very different. You have to think a lot more about. Your scope is less infinite. The checks are no longer blank. Not that they ever really are, but you know what I mean. There's more thought that goes into what you can actually achieve.
How big were your teams?
The team I'm working on right now is, I guess there's 4 of us really. So that's quite different to hundreds. So
yeah,
or thousands as it's been in the past, I guess.
Where did you work before? Or what are you most well known for, probably?
I guess the biggest things I've worked on are probably with Ubisoft. So I worked at Ubisoft Montreal on Watch Dogs, then Far Cry 4, and then Far Cry Primal. I've worked on a bunch of other places, but that's kind of the biggest thing I suppose I'm known for. I think the project I was at the most senior position at, which was my last one, which was at Splash Damage, where I worked on Gears Tactics. I was lead level designer on that. So it's probably my most involved project, I'd say.
And now you're working on a World War One kind of thing, horror thing?
That's kind of in my free time. My actual 9 to 5 game development is something I kind of can't talk about. The small team thing. That's.
Oh, okay.
We're not at a point where we're talking about the project yet. When we will, it'll all be talking about it constantly. But until then, we're sort of just basically trying to prepare the game for sort of public viewing, really. But in my free time, I work on quite a few games.
Yeah, I noticed you had 3 different things up here.
Yeah. So there's the World War project. Which is a sort of walking sim with some I call it a horror game sometimes when I'm talking about it, but it's kind of not. It's just creepy, I suppose, more than anything. It's a creepy World War One project. And yeah, I've just been messing with different things, really. Because it's in my free time, I don't really feel the pressure to kind of, release something. It would obviously be nice, but it's not I'd lose the house if I didn't release something.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
That's cool. I wonder because I know a little bit about AAA because at school we get the workflow and stuff and the Jira and the ticketing and all of that, which I'm sure you're familiar with at Ubisoft.
Yeah.
I wonder now that you're doing your own thing and your boss kind of, and it's a smaller project. Do you still feel inclined to do all of those things, or are you getting high on the fact that you don't have to make Jira tickets anymore?
Well, yes and no. Yes, I still continue to use Jira.
Okay.
No, in that the process of using it is now in a way that, how can I say it? Politely, there's no wasting of time anymore. There's no there's no following processes for process sake. It's kind of taking the stuff that is useful from using Jira, basically having some means of tracking things. I mean, you could do it in an Excel spreadsheet if there's just one of you, but if there's more, I think it's helpful to have a system in there. But yeah, I still use some of those tools. It's just the use of them is less I suppose, less structured. Like there's less red tape. It's just whatever is needed. As soon as it isn't useful, stop doing it. That's kind of the nice thing about indie. Whereas in AAA, you would probably, in most cases, you would have to kind of very much argue for a reason, like an alternative or a reason out of something that you deem as a waste of time or overly bureaucratic.
What I was going to say is that just like any project needs organization, like any of the projects I've worked on where I've done up, say, like a simple Trello board to track things have gone so much better than the ones where I haven't. And I've been able to keep scope and track and stuff, you know.
It's funny that you say that because now that I started the studio and I'm working on like this first big game, because like the previous project we were using Trello and like I'm so used to doing it that I wanted to try for this project to have absolutely no organization. And it's been going kind of well, actually. Like we have no Trello, we have no to-do lists, we have nothing. We're just kind of going off the idea that if we forget about it, it's probably not important. And it's been going okay, but we have come to like the point where we have to make some spreadsheets. So it's not possible to do it completely organizationless, but it's interesting.
Well, yeah, you're working with people you've worked with a good bit before as well, right?
For sure, yeah, that's also a big factor for sure.
Having stuff like that structured is very good for bringing new people onto projects or working with people you haven't worked with before.
For sure, yeah, definitely.
Like if I'm doing a game jam, what I was gonna say is that if I'm doing, say, like a weekend long game jam by myself, I never do organizational stuff because I know I can just like cut off wherever I am or not release the game. Whereas with a team of people, I'll try to always have some form of organization.
Yeah, true. I definitely don't condone it. Like, I definitely don't think people should not use Trello. But I don't know. I feel like it's kind of liberating not having like a list of things to do. I don't know. It feels like stressful.
I guess talking about that is a good segue to your first question, right, Adam?
Oh, yeah, for sure. My first question is, what has everyone been working on?
Well, I guess the project I've been working on in my day job I can't really talk about. I suppose I can say as much it's a shooter, an indie, so there's something that could be worked out from that.
How many letters are in the title of the game?
Not many.
Not many. Okay.
But in my free time, I'm working on. So I did the Game Maker's Toolkit Jam. When was that? In July, I guess. And me and a friend at Splash Damage actually sort of got together and made a sort of light puzzle immersive sim sort of game, which was obviously far too ambitious for the allotted time, but it worked. It was called Ident. Basically, it's a game where you have to kind of confirm your identity every 30 seconds, but you're trying to escape this sort of prison of sorts, and you have to go and do things to get out of the prison, but you have to keep returning to this terminal to confirm your identity every 30 seconds. So the idea is that you sort of unlock shortcuts to be able to get back to that terminal and confirm your identity so that then you can kind of unlock more things to get out.
Where do you find that? I only saw one screenshot on your Twitter.
I was really, really bad at pushing it, and in fact I think Twitter's algorithm buried it for some reason. It's actually something worth thinking about if you're ever advertising a game. Don't put the itch link in because in the actual tweet, because Twitter buries them. It's on my itch page. You can probably find it there. Whatever the format of itch URLs are, it's Sean-Noonan. So I guess, is it Sean?
I went to your website and I don't see a link to it there.
My website needs to be redone. I currently can't update it properly. I think it's Sean-Noonan.itch.io.
Okay, I found it now.
What I was gonna say, that game idea for ident, I hadn't actually seen that you'd done that, but it reminds me a lot of this game from the Haunted PS1 demo disc this year called Echostasis. Where you're going into a virtual world that someone is imagining in like a virtual reality bubble thing, and you're trying to get somewhere in it, but you can only spend 30 minutes in there at a time.
Oh, okay.
Or 30 seconds in there at a time. I mean, not 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think we actually set it. I feel like the final version we uploaded in the last 5 seconds of the jam. I think we changed it to 45 seconds, and we had this difficulty slider. And we watched people play it on Twitch, and our difficulty slider was basically backwards because we had it so obviously it starts at 30 seconds and goes up to 60 seconds. So people wanted to make it easy, and they scrolled it down to 30 seconds. No. So our difficulty was backwards, so everyone made it harder for themselves. It's like one of those things you shouldn't put in last minute. It just makes things worse. But that's basically what I've been working on.
I hate that when I release a jam game and I make one little mistake that makes the experience like that much worse for everyone.
Yes, yeah. At the moment, I'm basically working on a sort of update to that, like because we kind of, it was pretty rough when we put it in because submitted the game because it was a first person game with physics like stuff and like some immersive sim elements, so it was a bit too ambitious, so it came in pretty rough. So we want to kind of just polish it up a little bit and put it out again.
Did I see that you were working, because I remember you did the level 1, the 1-1 challenge thing, wasn't it? That you did Mario 1-1 in, was it Unity you did it in?
That's it in Unreal, I remade.
Yeah,
it was basically I took the 2D level of Super Mario Brothers 1-1 level and kind of made a first person shooter interpretation of it. And that was all in Unreal. Yeah.
That was really cool. I really loved that.
Did I see you say you were working on a sequel to that on Twitter at some point?
Yeah, because somehow it didn't get taken down for some reason.
I was like, I think I probably tweeted you at some point during making that, like, just rebrand it or something along those lines.
Yeah. So
I'm so surprised you haven't had to rebrand it.
Yeah, I think the reason that hasn't been hit by anything yet, because IGN reposted it and it got like 1 million views or something. So it's not like people haven't seen it. I think it's just because I never used the word Mario anywhere. Yeah,
you called it Super 1-1 or something, right?
Yeah, and I don't use... The only thing that I am absolutely ripping off, and I do... Like, they have every right to take it down, is that I'm using their audio.
Oh.
Don't you have Goombas as well? Or I guess they're a generic enough design you can probably get away with.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't rip anything for that. Like, I did create everything myself, but it's taking someone's design, so it's like... I use the term parody.
Yeah, I think Nintendo only takes down stuff that is like interfering with their plans, I think. Like, they don't take down, like, WarioWare fan games until, like, a new one comes out. Or something.
Yeah. I think I'm probably safe from them making shooters, but...
Well, making a Mario shooter anyway. Splatoon is a thing.
Yeah.
Maybe if they acknowledge it, then, like, I don't know, it's like a family-friendly thing, that if they acknowledge it, then they acknowledge shooting violence. I don't know.
I think there's also... I think it kind of helps that this might be me, I don't know, being a bit overconfident, but I feel like I did the sort of Nintendo thing quite well. I didn't...
Yeah.
You do see other you see a lot of people, as soon as they're going to make a Mario shooter, they immediately give him a Glock and make Goomba's eyes explode and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's hilarious, but it's definitely going to make Nintendo more likely to take it down.
Yeah. I tried to be as tasteful as possible, because I was basically trying to mimic what I feel that they would do.
Yeah.
Although I don't think they would have made a shooter, but if they were going to, I think that's hopefully what they would do.
I did notice you titled it FPS Super Mario Bros. Prototype on all your videos. And hashtag Super Mario, hashtag Mario FPS.
Hashtag Nintendo, please sue me.
Yeah, that came afterwards. That was when I realized, I'm okay with this. But I am messing around with the prototype for a follow-up. I'm taking another well-known level and doing a spin on it using the sort of framework that I've built. But again, it's kind of just a thing that I'm doing in the background to kind of learn a few different things. Like the main goal of that one was to learn about texture painting and vert painting and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of weird. I'm just using it as an experimental test bed for things.
I mean, that's what a lot of projects that I do are. They're like, I want to learn about this. And then I do. And I add a whole extra thing to my workflow for every game I make after that.
Yeah, exactly. It's awesome. You just sort of build out this like sort of toolkit you can kind of grab things from in future.
Yeah, too. I think you should make a sequel to the game and then wait until Nintendo takes it down, and then when it does, you have a copy ready which doesn't infringe, and you put that up on Steam, and then in the big article where it's Nintendo takes down this cool fan game, you can link people to your Steam, and bam, 10,000 wish lists, just like that.
I'm pretty sure that's a legitimate marketing strategy a lot of people have used.
Yeah, I don't doubt it at all.
Do something controversial.
So I guess we'll talk about what everyone else has been working on.
Yeah, what have you been working on? Breogan?
Yeah. I've been working on. So I've been working on a few things, but the big one is a secret pitch for a game that I'm not able to talk about, but is very cool. And I guess what I can say about it is it's in the sort of haunted PS1 style. Is what we're aiming at, but it's gonna tell an interesting story, I think. But sorry, go ahead.
Can I guess? Is it the game that Modus is also working on?
No, it's a different game.
Okay. Okay.
So what else I'm working on right now is because we're organizing the Haunted PS1 Summer Game Jam right now. That's happening while we're recording. And I started an entry for that with some teammates, and it's going really well. And I've shared a little bit of progress here and there, but I'm kind of keeping it for when I can show off some of the systems interacting properly with each other to post a nice 2-minute long video on Twitter or something. So the theme for the game jam is there's two. There's submechanophobia, which is the fear of underwater man-made objects. And then there is public service announcement, and we sort of went entirely with the submechanophobia one, and we're making a sci-fi game where you wake up in a facility that your character works in, and it's this big factory, and it's been flooded, and the AI that runs the factory has gone rogue, and basically you're trying to reason with it, and it's trying to get you to do things for it, and you have to dive down into the factory and collect upgrades to be able to dive deeper, because if you go too deep, the pressure gets too high and your oxygen suddenly plummets. And so it's going to be all these tight, dense corridors that you're swimming through, and your oxygen's just about to run out, and you need to find an air pocket to save yourself, basically.
Sonic flashbacks.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. In Sonic, that's terrible. I think Sonic should never have underwater levels if that's how they're gonna do it, because you play Sonic to be going fast and having a fun time, and not to be stuck underwater trying to jump on those dumb squares that move around.
Be terrified by that sound effect.
Yeah. So like, but in a horror game, it's great. It's like, yeah, I totally want to be terrified that my oxygen's gonna run out in a horror game. That's gonna add to the like mood so much. Especially if we manage to pull it off right, and we can communicate to the player the like limitations of their swimming.
It kind of makes me think of Barotrauma. Have you seen that?
I think I've probably watched like a trailer a few years back, but not actually looked into it very much. No, I must take a look at that.
It's like 2D survival horror submarine game.
Yeah, I'm doing first person thing. I'm kind of taking cues from some like 90. Well, I'm taking cues very specifically from Unreal Tournament 99 for the game feel of it, because I've been playing that lately, and I just love how the momentum and stuff in that feels. And I've implemented like the swimming in it. It's actually like really fast and smooth, but because the level's gonna be so intricate, it's going to be hard to actually get where you need to get fast enough, even though it's going to still feel fun to swim, I think.
I gotta play Unreal still. Where do you get it?
You can get it on Steam. I've been I got it running at 144 hertz on my 1440p monitor. And it is so good. And I've never been one to be like, I need high frame rates, but that just felt really good to play. So
how long is the jam still, the summer jam?
I believe there is, hang on, let me just check the dates on it here. So it started on July 9th, and it will finish on August 16th. So as we're recording, there's about a month left. When this episode releases, I'm guessing there'll be like a week or two left. But we're trying to encourage people to do shorter periods for it. So what we officially said was that the first weekend was a weekend jam in itself, sort of. So people would like try and finish something in the weekend if they felt like they only had time for a weekend. But like, yeah, we want people to do like short jams within that time period, as well as like some people are gonna do the full length. I know.
Yeah, too. It sounds really cool. I love the team. I love that there's two teams to start with, but like both of the teams are like, I can think of like 100 games.
Yeah.
And I want to do something.
I know what you mean.
But yeah, time.
Well, as I say, like you can make a game in one day for the jam, and like it's not ranked or anything, so there's not like, and I'm sure you enter most game jams you enter just for the sake of making a game, right? So.
Yeah, I should do something like on company time.
Hey, we're not against paid projects either.
That's really cool. What have you been working on, Miz?
Rot Flesh, that's it. Just full force working on that.
On what, sorry?
Rot Flesh, my main game.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah,
I've had to do like, I've gotten a ton of stuff to, like, I've been working on the second area of the game, and like there's like tons of new enemies and guns, and like right today I'm adding sound effects, and I've been like I've had to do a ton of performance optimizations, just like figuring out how do I get the game to actually run well on most people's computers.
Yeah. And
just like tons of stuff, and like all these like little algorithms I have to figure out to like make things run better, like instead of having the IK update on every character every frame, I just have it run through a queue, so it only updates like 3 of them every frame, and then it like prioritizes ones that are closer and like things like that. And yeah, all sorts of like weird time slicing is, I think, the term somebody said. So you take something that takes a long time to do, and then you like divide it up over multiple frames in a way that's not going to be noticeable, and tons of optimizations, tons of work, tons of new stuff. And it's like, once I'm done with this area, it's like I can make a video about it, and then it's just the final area, and then the final boss fight, and it's gonna be like, it's gonna be really cool. I'm like almost there. It feels like it's starting to like feel like it's in the end is in sight after like 2 years.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And then and it's like fun because it's like the game is fun too. Like I can just get in the game and run around out and have fun like playing with all the mechanics, and it's just like I'm enjoying it, and I'm like enjoying it more than other shooters I've played, and that's like weird. Like I think my game's funner than other games.
Oh my god.
Then I'm also trying to throw together like a course to like, because I need to like pump my income up again. So I'm like, I need to make a course that's kind of like going to tie in with this next video I make about the game. So I got to like throw that together. And then I also finished my game for the next 4 Devs video, and that's being edited right now. So yeah, anyways, that's like everything I've been working on.
Yeah, I'm just so excited to play Rogue Flash when it's finished. It's very much the sort of game I think I'd enjoy.
Thanks. Yeah. I've wanted, there's like so many like little things I would have liked to expand on, but it would have just taken so long. Like more unique kinds of organs with weirder stats and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like, I've already got enough there for a game, and it's just like, I don't want to spend all the time to like, increment and build all this other stuff that I don't think people would use as much. Yeah.
I think you could probably do an expansion for it pretty well, because I'm almost certain that you have a bunch of ideas you're not going to get to use, like for various elements of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's plenty of things I could add and expand it. But I'm also like, am I going to even want to touch this again? And like because I've got like 5 other games I want to make.
Yeah.
This is probably the biggest game I ever make, and I just want to make like small stuff after this.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I'm like hoping this...
Do you have like an estimated release date that you want to officially announce in the podcast? Or
I mean, I would love to do like the end of August, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I still got to make a Steam page. Oh yeah.
Oh man, you should make it as fast as possible.
I've heard wish lists don't matter though, so I'm just like, who cares?
Oh, I hope they do.
I'm almost certain that wish lists do matter, and like they matter at scale, especially before release as well, because people are going to get a notification when the game launches that a game they wish listed launched, and that's how I end up buying a lot of the games that I end up wish listing. Is because I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, like, it can't hurt as well.
Yeah, that's true. I just have to make a trailer and then make all the visual assets, and it's like...
I heard once that if you get 35,000 wish lists, that you get on the front page when you release. But that might be like a Steam myth, to be honest.
Yeah, it's like sort of cargo cult stuff where people are like guessing what like, if my trailer's got the first frame of it's red, then definitely I'll be on the front page.
Yeah, it does sound like magic. But...
So, what have you been working on, Adam?
Oh, I'm getting actually kind of scarily close to the release date of the first episode of Spookware.
Oh, nice.
Which is, the release date has not been announced yet. So currently the Steam page says fall, so I'm going to say fall. But it's exciting and it's successful, but I think we can make it. And it's kind of, it's like coming together now. But we still have to like figure out some annoying stuff like localization. And I don't know. I don't know. We want to have it like in multiple languages and stuff, and I'm scared something will break down the line. So, but we're still finishing content, so I'm focusing on getting that done. But it is exciting. It's starting to look like a real game.
That's cool.
It was really rude that Nintendo didn't wait until after you released to announce their new WarioWare.
Yeah, I thought they would, to be honest, but I don't know. I'm kind of thinking it might not be the worst thing ever, because I don't know, it might help because people will like remember what WarioWare is, and then they're like, oh, so this game is like WarioWare. I know that game, So it's like,
especially if you get that Switch release going and people are searching for WarioWare.
Oh, that's a good point. Also, we're like WarioWare on PC, so that also helps.
Yeah.
It never hurts to have like a big release in the genre around the same time as your game, especially especially in a genre where you can kind of experience the game pretty quickly, like in a lot of ways, you know. Like, I mean, obviously those games don't wear off quickly, but they do like raise the question: oh, is there more like this that I can get that's like new?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm thinking we're also like very much different enough than just WarioWare.
Yeah.
So people will be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, WarioWare could have done this, but they didn't. And it's like, yeah.
I can't believe WarioWare didn't harp on horror movies.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, we've been really like doubling.
Wait till it comes out and it turns out they've actually stolen all of your mini games.
Oh my god, imagine. Yeah, we've been really like doubling down on every part of our game that is not like unlike BioWare. So we're hoping it like stands out on that front. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm also really happy that we did like playtests now, and our game is like a lot longer than we thought it was, which is really good. Because I'm always stressful about like game length. There are like so many games on Steam that are like really good, and then like all the reviews are like, this game was only 2 hours. He funded, you know. We're doing really good on length, so I'm really happy. We just got to get it done, I guess. So that's what I've been working on.
So I guess we should do Sean's first question.
Yeah.
Yeah. This sort of comes off the back of some recent, I guess, discourse around difficulty. But yeah, how do you all feel about save scumming?
Love it.
What is save scumming?
Oh yeah, I should probably explain it. It's where you're able to, usually in the game where you can save at any point throughout gameplay, and then just load it up whenever you feel that something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
So basically, no consequences to actions, that kind of thing. That's the argument against it, at least.
Yeah, like if you want to see if there's a dialogue tree and it's like, oh, I wonder what that one does, but I wouldn't actually pick that. But let's just save, and then I'll choose the worst options to see.
Yeah.
And then I'll go back and like choose the one I actually want to do.
I feel like it's, I don't know. I think sheets are cool in general, so it's probably like a sheet, maybe. I don't know. I don't really. I think it's kind of interesting because it's like in games like Skyrim, you know, where it's like really easy to do that. I feel like it's almost like part of the gameplay, you know.
Yeah.
But then it's like a personal challenge to not do it, you know. Which kind of it adds to the game, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, personally, I think like as long as it's possible not to save scum, it doesn't matter, because if people really don't want to be save scumming, then that's up to them. And if you don't want your players to save scum, then don't let them, you know.
I also believe like generally in games, if like player wants to do something, you should let them. I don't know. I think it ties into the whole like when you make a platformer, like all jumps should like succeed. It's like the same thing, you know. If you don't want to die and play this part over again, then you shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
I just feel like if save scumming is something that's needed to get past certain levels or certain parts, that's like a failure on the designer's part, where it's just like, oh, we made this level too obfuscated or too hard to understand or play through for the player, so they have to save scum to beat it. And that kind of thing. It's more just a failure on the design part if it's needed. Otherwise, it's just can be just like a fun way to see extra content.
I find that stuff like that, like save scumming and other like things that save you from like repeating frustrating things, they're only really going to be used when something is frustrating and like are unfair, and especially in games with random number generation, things can just randomly become unfair. Like a guard can see you when they possibly shouldn't have, or like when it doesn't make sense to you that they should have. And like I think it's completely fair to go back and be like, well, that didn't work, and then you'll learn from your mistakes as well anyway.
But yeah, the reason I'd mentioned it was off the back of watching. Obviously, people have been talking about difficulty in games recently. I think just because of an Xbox tweet or something, they said finishing the game in easy mode, still finishing the game, which I agree with.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is because I have a slightly different feeling about save scumming. I was watching a video trying to get some reference. Somebody was playing Deus Ex, Human Revolution, I think it was, and they were going through the ship, hacking a door, failed the hacking, or they didn't get the bonus points for the hacking minigame, and then they'd reload, and they do it maybe 10 or 12 times with this one door, and they were just basically almost screaming at the screen. And I'm not sure if that's. It's kind of almost that they're projecting the pressure of the game's fantasy onto themselves, and the experience isn't matching it, which is something I found in what game was it? In Dishonored. I actually found Dishonored incredibly difficult to get into because I was putting the pressure of being this like uber stealthy, ninja guy, and I was clumsy as I was playing it on 360 at the time actually, so I'm terrible with a controller, so I was really clumsy and I was not fulfilling the fantasy, so I was just reloading the game all the time. It just the pressure of it was just too much, and I just gave up and I didn't go back. I've tried it a couple of times and I keep doing the same thing.
I think my first run through of Dishonored, I went like full on, just like kill as much as I need to, basically. Try to be stealthy up until the point where I can't.
Yeah.
And that's like a lot of fun, I think. Especially because, like, I don't know, I think in the story of the game, you're not really that stealthy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's strange, because I got that same feeling from Wolfenstein, that, the newer versions of Wolfenstein, you get up to that point when you're, taking people out one by one, and then you screw up inevitably, and then it goes into full combat mode and everything's exploding and stuff. That's cool. But for some reason, the sort of, I guess, the assassin fantasy of Dishonored sort of broke that for me, and I felt the pressure of the narrative weighing on me as a player, and yeah, it's strange. I really don't know where I sort of like fit with that, and it's why I brought it up, because it's something I'm not settled with yet.
I think Dishonored is the one game where I like may have done a bit of save scumming, because I don't play that many like stealth games or anything where there is much of a need for save scumming, but like I think in Dishonored it kind of like you have two options. You can go back to your autosave like just before you went into the room, or you can like use your powers to escape and run away and try and come back later, a lot of the time. And I tried to pick the like retreat option more than the save scum option.
Right.
But that doesn't always work, and I did have to save scum a bit through it. But then I went for the fully stealth run on my second run, and I never finished that, but I had a bunch of fun with it.
Yeah, just something I find interesting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's really interesting how our own psychology makes games less fun.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, when you view a game as like in a simplified way, like that, it is just a branch of potential outcomes and actions that cause those outcomes. Like I think it's fun to be able to like play in that space and go back and see what the other outcomes and actions like cause. And like I think having the option to do that is great, but I also definitely like see why people like dislike it as well.
I guess gamers don't want moral dilemmas in their games.
All right, Breogan, you want to ask your question?
So Sean, you've done a lot of level design, from what I know, and I'm guessing you probably got into that through like modding or something, right?
Yeah. Modding very early on, yeah.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask, and this comes up because I think I mentioned already that I was playing Unreal Tournament recently, and I was messing around with Unreal Editor while I was doing that, and I was like amazed by like just like the CSG workflow from Unreal Editor, like the first one, it's basically the same CSG workflow you get in any CSG tool I've seen today. And I'm just wondering, like, do you think that the design workflows and tools now are any better than what we had about like 20 years ago in like the early 2000s? Especially because like a lot of like modern level design techniques like modularity and stuff cause much more noticeable repetition, I think.
I'll go into sort of like I'll try and explain the two different avenues of thought here. But yeah, I got into modding like I guess my first experience with modding was probably Duke Nukem 3D, which obviously the level editor for that is just a top-down, grid-based thing. I think it was Duke Ed or something along those lines. And then I progressed into Quake and Half-Life, and then eventually going into Unreal, and then that I eventually ended up working professionally in that field. But there was when I got into level design professionally, that was just when static meshes had been around for quite a while at that point. Like, you're no longer just building things using CSG or BSP workflows. You were now manipulating art assets that have been built and handed to you as a designer. And there's obvious pros and cons there. The biggest pro being that things will look better. From a sort of like if you're trying to reach high fidelity visuals, like you're gonna reach that faster. If you're a level designer and you're building some steps, you're building steps. You don't care like so much about how the step is chipped, or like how the light's gonna hit the material on the step in a certain way, like outside of like maybe design intent, because you're trying to make something look brighter or something. So an artist is making that step look like the best step it could ever look, depending on how much time they're allowed to work on it. Whereas you just care that there's steps, right? So that's kind of how the modern workflow is now. It's like as a level designer, you build like design intent, so you provide that to an art team, and then the art team are just basically filling it in. There's also like you mentioned modular workflows. So when you've built a certain amount of art, then you can start putting that together and then build new stuff using stuff that already exists. And it can be quite an efficient way of working. Of course, there can be repetition. I'll mention that. So on Gears Tactics, the last game I worked on, we built our campaign outside of, I guess, maybe 3 levels using an entirely modular workflow. And people didn't really notice it. In fact, in the IGN review, and I've mentioned this a few times, they actually called us out for not using procedural levels, because they couldn't see that it was procedural. And I think that means we did a really good job, because they didn't know. But they still listed it as a negative, which is quite funny. But that just came down to like sort of really having a lot of the right types of metadata. So when I say metadata, I mean like, say you've got a road piece, that could be a straight road piece or an L-shaped road piece. You could have, if you've got a lot of roads, which you will, like you have like 20 different straight road pieces and 3 L-shaped ones, because you need more straights because they appear more often. It's basically a good manipulation of metadata. Whereas if you don't have that like level of like finesse in how you put that metadata together, then like say you've only got one of everything, then that repetition is going to be crazy. It's going to be everywhere. So that there are ways of making more modern systems work. Of course, the older ways of doing things, like using BSP or CSG workflows, they obviously mean that a single person can be like a level design machine. They can like crank out content. They can make things look like sort of presentable. And I say presentable, not I mean, they obviously look good for what they're aiming to do, but you're not gonna. It's going to be quite difficult to sell that to the next set of Call of Duty fans. That they want the highest fidelity stuff. So all modern tools are basically geared to cater to that audience, because they're the biggest audience. Whether, like, obviously as a level designer, that can be quite frustrating if you don't have a setup for the specific project you're on that can kind of work with the current tools. But yeah, it's just things have changed. As far as from an independent point of view, it's changed for probably the worse when it comes to a small team, because it limits you to a specific tier of visuals. That means the games just become more about gameplay. Obviously, art direction is very important. You can make a cube look good, and you can make a cube look bad, right? Like it depends on how your like sort of whole project comes together. But it's for me. I have managed to embrace the modern stuff. I do miss the days when I could just work on something exclusively on my own without having to open up like Maxmire or Blender or whatever, because obviously those things are incredibly slow when you're used to the other workflows, because not because they're slow in themselves, because the process is always it's an extra tool, right? You're bouncing in and out of different software, and it's as soon as you put in more of those barriers, like the more breaks in your like your workflow, your concentration, everything.
Yeah, I've been like very loyal to making all of my levels completely in 3ds Max and then just putting them in Unity and adding lights. But lately I've been more and more like, I'm just gonna make small pieces and put them in Unity, because it's like, it's so depressing looking at 3ds Max. It's so ugly, But if it's like in Unity, it's like everything you add, it's like, oh, this is game ready. I can publish this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because I've been investing more time in real-time CSG recently, which is a Unity plugin that lets you do a CSG workflow in editor, and that's like so powerful, and like I mean it's like as powerful as you can get for like a CSG workflow, from what I've seen, and like I don't know, I just find it so much, like, especially as an indie developer, I'm not going to be getting like AAA modular like tile sets that look great. So instead, like, going with CSG is going to get me much more visual interest, because I can do more complex things with geometry that would take like half an hour to actually get working in Blender, or like 1 second in CSG as I draw out a shape and just extrude it.
Yeah, because it's all in the same editor as well, right?
Yeah.
Like you're working in Unity, like that. It's removing that break from the flow.
Plus you can just like click play and play test as well.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's one thing Unity, like, I think gets very right a lot of the time, is just like being able to iterate between testing and building.
That's one of the reasons why I wouldn't ever really want to go back to the way things were. The iteration loop, like I adore Quake, I adore Half-Life and Half-Life 2. I love that stuff, but not seeing what my lighting looks like until I've gone through some, arcane batch file to set up my viz and my lighting. I don't want to ever do that ever again. I want to be able to just move something, press Alt P or Control G, whatever your shortcut is, see how that looks, move it, see how it looks again, and just I want that fast iteration. And it's so important to me, that is.
Yeah, I haven't used any old tools besides map editors on some old RTSs like a couple times, but I know that a big thing with modern engines is that they're really big on what you see is what you get. Like,
yeah,
you have the editor window, and it's like, that's what it's going to look like in the game. You put something in and you already know what it looks like. You don't have to, like if you're working on a game that's all code and it's not through an editor, then it's like you got to write up the code, and then you got to like hit play, and you got to program a specific test scenario or whatever to see what it looks like. And it's like you can't just see what it looks like easily.
Yeah. I often think about like slapping together like PS1 graphics now is super easy. But like during the PS1 days and stuff, I mean, there's so many things we take for granted now that must have been like hell back then. I think.
Oh
like,
yeah, totally.
You know, you see like games from 30 years ago, and it's like, I could do this, you know, and it's true you can do this, but they had like stones and rocks making, you know.
I think the oldest tech I've used is when I was on Crackdown 2. The engine we used was Renderware, which was it pretty much powered the PS2. Like the PS2 library was like mostly Renderware games, and I think most of the tools for that were bespoke per studio. Like you had the engine, but the actual front end tools and everything were all different. And the tool set we used on Crackdown 2, and I mean statutes and limitations are okay on that, so I can say they were terrible. Like I didn't have any way of like actually doing level design in the game. I had to basically stand over an artist's shoulder and give them like, you know, top down drawings and then say, no, make this higher. And it was painful.
Yeah.
Like, especially because I just come off the back of working in Unreal. It was like Unreal 2 back then, but you know, it was still way more powerful than anything I was using at that point.
Speaking of tools, have you guys seen the GitHub autopilot or like pilot thing? They're like,
oh yeah,
autocomplete your code, like the AI thing.
From what I remember, I found out about it from someone complaining about how some of its output was wrong in some of the examples.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for like the podcast in 10 years from now that are like, oh, remember when people had to drag stuff into engines and not have to, you know, say that the AI do everything for them. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I think is interesting about about modern, like the possibilities for modern level design is that like I think a lot of stuff isn't being like fully utilized yet. Like there's no dedicated level design tool for VR yet. Like apart from in editor like Unity and Unreal, but those aren't actual level design tools, you know. Where like I actually recently used Tilt Brush to like make a plan in 3D, like a map of the level that I was gonna make, and then I built a level based off that, and it actually like really helped me get like an interesting use of 3D space into it.
Yeah, I wonder if they're ever gonna make like a completely VR game engine, just like you make your game in VR.
It's just hard to code in there because you can't read anything very well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like one of the things about VR. It's like all the things, like the sci-fi things that's like difficult for VR, like big 3D interfaces and stuff and stuff like that. It's like all of those fantasies are just like the few things that are really not fun in VR, you know? Like doing work in VR is really uncomfortable.
Yeah. The things that are fun are being a low poly gorilla running around with your hands.
Yeah, or like picking up something and throwing it is still the funnest thing you can do in VR.
Yeah. Passionate question, but what do you believe makes a memorable level?
I think doing something like subversive to what you've like set up with the game. Like usually like halfway or something, or like at the end of the game, they usually like do something where it's like, oh, you thought this game was this, but now we're doing this.
Yeah.
And that's usually like the most memorable level, you know, when something like just completely changes and it's like, oh damn, this game has surprises, you know.
Yeah. There's cases where that backfires. Well, I mean, it's memorable, but in a bad way. Like, well, from what I've heard of the Zen stuff at the end of Half-Life 1.
Oh yeah.
That's like worked in the opposite way. They mixed it up, and then it was memorable for people not liking it.
Yeah, it's got some. I'm quite a big Half-Life fan, and yeah, Zen is something that it's not Zen itself. There's a chunk towards the end of Zen when you're in a sort of basically an alien factory, and it's just a slog that you're just fighting lots of damage sponges, and it's just that's how you make something memorable for the wrong reasons, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say my most memorable levels seem to be the ones where I accidentally messed up something, and then everyone's talking about how hard that level was or something. Like I know a game I made recently, that horror game, survival horror game where you drag yourself around with one hand.
Yeah.
And the final level, I was like, oh, let's just put a bunch. You're in a hallway and there's like 50 enemies coming at you, and it's like just barely winnable if you play it exactly perfectly. And everyone's just in the comments like, that last level was too hard though. I was like sweating, and everyone's talking about the final level and how hard it is. And I was like, is that good or bad? It seems like they all beat it, but then they hated it, but they still beat it because they wanted to get through it. So I'm like, is that good or bad or what?
It's hard to tell when someone's getting like really frustrated at your game whether they're actually enjoying it or not, because some people just like enjoy being frustrated at things. I watched a let's play of my game Bubbo recently. I just like randomly stumbled upon it. It was like the Gaming Mom or something the channel was called, and it was this woman playing the game, and she was getting really frustrated, but then at the end she was like, "Oh, that was really good," and I was like, I was not expecting her to like be positive about it. But in terms of memorable levels, personally, I think that the big key is getting the atmosphere right. Because if you can make a level that just feels like really atmospherically interesting and well, obviously visually memorable as well, it's gonna be good. But if it's another scientific facility that you've been through 20 already, you're not gonna remember, you know.
Yeah, I found myself. I find it so that there's a divide between whether or not something's memorable emotionally or whether it's memorable mechanically. And I think if you ever manage to fuse those two things together, I think that's kind of the sweet spot. There's a good example of that. I find, at least that it worked for me. Is there's a point in Splinter Cell. The one with the mark and execute, which one was it called? Conviction. The name wasn't memorable, but the level was. There's a point about halfway through where you're basically super like pissed off, and that's reflected. Like, so narratively, you're pissed off for various reasons. Daughter was killed, maybe wasn't killed, that kind of thing. But throughout the game, you've been using this mark and execute mechanic, where basically you can tag some people, and when you've killed enough enemies, like through melee attacks, you get to do this like sort of cool, cool at the time anyway, Born Identity sort of instant sort of, you know, you headshot everyone around the room with a sort of single click kind of thing. It looks cool. So at this point in the game, when you're super pissed off and like your world's falling down around you, you basically get that infinite. Oh. So you can just like sort of, you're basically super rage mode. You kill everything you see, and there's no like limitation on it. That was awesome, and it was super memorable. And I think that's kind of a mixture of like the narrative was there, the mechanics were there, because obviously there's something that's limited, and then they make it unlimited. And obviously it's a fusion of emotional and mechanical drama, I suppose. It's quite a hard thing to engineer, I think, but
it's interesting to think like so many of the like concepts for levels that you would come up with are just like done 1,000 times in games already, and they're not going to be doing anything new, but the story calls for it or whatever. I found that like you make something anyway. So I think actually like in terms of like level design, you have to have like the plot has to do something interesting for the level to be interesting or memorable, if it's something that has a plot, of course. That or like a really good set piece.
Yeah, set pieces are always a good one for that.
Yeah, I think that's why Half-Life 2 was so memorable. It sure wasn't the gun fighting.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
How do you come up with ideas for levels after you've already made like 50 levels and you ran out of ideas 30 levels ago?
Kind of links into the previous question.
Yeah.
I can say one sort of trick that you can do for this. That it's something that I'm assuming a lot of studios do this. But but you can build a variety matrix of your game, which is basically you split up your. You can do it on a spreadsheet, right? You can just split up all of your mechanics, all of your like gameplay situations. Like, so you've got your mechanics like run, jump, shoot, dive, climb, all that sort of stuff. Then you can have like escape, combat, protect, all of these other types of gameplay. And then next to that, you can line up, say, vertical spaces, horizontal spaces, obtuse spaces, simple spaces, and then you can literally flick a coin for each of those options. And then at the end of it, you've got what essentially is a scenario built out of your game, and you could do that a bunch of times and come up with different scenarios using what you've got in your game currently, and maybe find new ideas. It is a really effective way of just kind of coming up with new things with what you've got.
That's cool. That's a clever idea. I kind of did something like that, but more as a way to like figure out difficulty, so I could like track, okay, these enemies are this hard, this mechanic is this hard, and then I can like add it up and be like, I need something this difficult, so I can like add up, based on difficulty.
But you can totally do it. You can totally do it for like coming up with narrative ideas as well. If you've got like, and I mentioned this because of open world games, which I've worked on quite a few of those, so it's kind of useful to have a tool like this. So you've already got like all of the different mechanics you can have, and you've got an overall story. But if you want to have like sort of small, like sort of side plots and things, you can kind of come up with them by like having interesting outcomes on your variety matrix. Like if one of your options you've chosen is to not have a gun, then you could easily say, oh, that's me, like my character's locked up for whatever reason, I need to get a gun, or I don't have a gun at all, I need to sort of like make my way out of something. It sort of starts building a story on its own, just with a bunch of coin flips in an Excel document. It's quite cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's much better like what I was going to say. I was just going to say make a new mechanic. I feel like yours is more manageable.
Yeah. Always get as much as you can out of your mechanics before you add more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And non, like, a lot of mechanics that don't seem like they fit together can sometimes come up, like, they can sometimes make you, like, build new and interesting ideas that you just wouldn't have thought of, because they just seem, on the surface, they seemed incompatible.
Yeah. This actually reminds me of, I played it, well, last year I played a lot of Mario Maker 2. And coming up with something that, like, was a bit more unique in that game, it basically took me looking through all the things and doing that matrix in my head. And I never thought about trying to do a spreadsheet for that. So it's possibly something that would be really interesting to do, I think, for Mario Maker, is to like line up all the different blocks you have against all of the like other stuff.
Yeah, it would be a good way of coming up with something that you haven't seen before.
That would be a fun challenge, like game designer challenge, where a bunch of game designers get together and make Mario Maker levels. And then they each have to play each other's levels.
That does sound fun, actually.
Yeah.
Everyone would have to be like able to record their Switch screen if you wanted to make a video about it to Miz.
Oh yeah, that's true. Maybe just a stream, keep it casual.
This comes up a lot, and it's kind of tied into the first question I had, like, the save scumming, but like, what methods do you put into place to avoid players from optimizing the fun out of their own gameplay? So to use an example that I've like talked about like at some length recently, is back on Watch Dogs. I was overseeing a playtest for the campaign. I think I went to, it was Toronto, and I was basically watching a bunch of like the public play the game before it was finished. So I was just kind of gauging what they thought of like the different bits of content in the game. Sorry to use that word. It was a side mission that I was kind of focusing on the most, which were these convoys, which is basically an enemy or set of enemies have got one point in the map they start at, and then they get to another one, and you can take them. You just basically need to make sure they don't reach that point. And you can do anything you want to stop them. And it was interesting, watching all these people who, they couldn't see each other's screens, and just watching them all engage with that in different ways. And like, they'd all try these different things, and they rated the missions very, very high, because they could do whatever they want, and they all enjoyed it. And then slowly, as they played more of them, and most of the people did, they got into a loop, and we weren't telling them to play anything in any specific way, but once they did one, they wanted to do another. And you noticed at a certain point, usually 2 or 3 in, it depended on the player, but they would start to find what made it easiest. And they would just do that repeatedly, and then they rated the mission terribly. And the only difference was them.
It's horrible, because I have so many friends of mine who just play GTA 5, like the online stuff, over and over again, and they do nothing else but play like the most optimized mission where you get the most money from the least amount of time, and they just play that constantly, like day in, day out. And it's like, why? It's horrible. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if it's like an easy thing to avoid though. I guess maybe some people just really like finding out that kind of stuff. It's just like,
I think it becomes more of a problem when you do like sort of games like you were saying, GTA Online, games as a service stuff. And the one game that I play that I've noticed it badly in is No Man's Sky, which obviously there's like, you have to collect so much resources over the course of the thing that you work at just like how to make a bunch of money and then how to buy those resources instead. And like, over time, you're doing less of the like interesting exploration on planet. But what I actually found recently, they started a new game mode called Expeditions, which is like you start a new save file and from scratch you build up to like a set of goals that they give you. And because you're starting from scratch and they give you all of these goals, you actually end up interacting with the systems that you stopped interacting with when you were playing regularly. Although then there's some people who did optimize those out, but those are the players who want to optimize, I reckon. But the other game I was going to bring up that I think probably by its just by the nature of how like of its existence that does this well is Minecraft. Because if you want to do stuff in Minecraft, you're going to have to do a lot of like high effort research and high effort like making farms and stuff. But the people who do it, they actually get a lot of joy out of it because it is something that takes a lot of effort and a lot of research. And the regular players can still like do that stuff, and they can get reasonable amounts of resources for what they want to do.
That's interesting. Is that do you think that's because the goals are personal and not external?
Yeah, I think personal driven goals are a really, really important thing to countering that. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I really don't know how you can fix it, because I have seen different like when I brought it up in the past with the Watch Dogs example, the sort of responses I got were maybe you should have to maybe the challenge is that you have to tick a box that you have to use a grenade launcher or something, which generally was what everyone ended up doing. It's like the thing that makes everything blow up. They just use that. Maybe it's like you can't use a grenade launcher or something. It's like, but then players feel like annoyed that there's an artificial barrier there. It's just very difficult. And my personal solution, which I talked about in the thread, was to basically half. In fact, I think I even wanted to quarter the amount of that type of mission and content that was in the game. I wanted to just have less of it in the game. Which we couldn't do. We had to basically, have a certain amount of something, but I didn't want to do that. I ended up cutting it down a little bit, but not by enough, I don't think. That's the only way I can really think of doing it, which would keep... I think it's always better to have the player wanting more. It doesn't always line up with what a company wants from a product, though, right?
I'm trying to think now, because you mentioned like the personally driven goals that you have in, say, Minecraft, and now I'm trying to think, how do you encourage people to have those goals without like being explicitly a creative game.
Yeah.
I have some experience. I mean, I haven't released a game that can be optimized the fun way or whatever, I don't think, but I have noticed in a game I released that people optimize for challenge and to make it more difficult. Actually, in my game Theist Thou, people would like, I noticed videos, challenges, people would message me also that they're doing this, that they would like try to beat it without using guns. They just use their fists and like they'd like levitate guns around to like distract enemies and get them to chase that, and then they'd sneak up behind and punch them, and like they're making it more difficult just so they could, I don't know, get new and different challenges. And it wasn't something I didn't make an achievement for it, which I mean I feel like I should have now. That would be cool. But like they were just like, oh, this is another interesting way I could play the game and with a different set of challenges, and they just made it up themselves. So I guess just making it an option that you can do that. So like I guess right now, like in my game Rock Flesh, you don't have to use guns, and your default is an infinite ammo finger gun that shoots blood. Like if I could make that a little better, and you can modify what it does by equipping other organs that make it shoot fire and stuff. So I'm like, maybe I'll just, if I make it well designed enough, I'm sure someone's going to challenge themselves to never use a normal gun in the game. They'll just use that,
From what I've seen, there is no normal gun in your game. They're all like shooting flies or something,
Yeah, I guess. Oh, there's a couple machine guns that behave pretty normally. All the guns are pretty fun to use, though.
I actually, now that I think about it, there's a game I released that I never addressed this properly in, but that's because like, if you were optimizing it, the fun out of it, you weren't going to be having fun anyway, and I wasn't releasing it seriously, so I didn't want to make sure everyone had the most fun they could. But I released a game called Perennial, which is basically a horror game where you're being chased by a monster that turns into a tree when you look at it. And the monster would like follow up on you from behind. And so what people found they could do is they could just spin around in circles constantly, and they'd never get caught by it because they'd skim their camera over it at some point. But like that meant you were like spinning around in circles, and it also made it harder to navigate, which you don't have like a marker on the map in that game. You have to like navigate with a compass and a map.
Is this Perennial V.09?
Yeah, that's the one.
0.9, I mean. I remember seeing this Watchtower like a long time ago.
Yeah, it's in my show reel. You probably saw it there.
Oh yeah, that's probably where I saw it.
Yeah, Sean, I guess just say like maybe your Twitter or wherever people can keep an eye on to find out about this secret project you're working on.
Yeah, do you have anything to promote?
I don't really have anything to plug, really. I guess I'm on Twitter, at Sean Noonan. My games are on itch, which I think that is Sean-Noonan.itch.io, I think. I don't really have anything to plug right now. I will at some point soon, but not yet.
I was thinking just there how weird it was like to hear you talking about Watch Dogs when that is like when that game came out. Like I was in the equivalent of high school for Ireland, and my friend had gotten like a PlayStation 4 brand new for his birthday, and that was the first game he got on it. And like just like realizing that I know someone who worked on that now is so weird. And I'm like in my mid-20s now, so it's not that long ago, but it's like weird. If I could have told myself then that I would know someone who had worked on that, it would have been weird, right?
Yeah, it was exciting to work on that. Because it was such a big deal when it was first announced and stuff. It's I don't know if it's the thing that sold the most out of everything I've worked on, but it sold a lot.
I was gonna ask Sean, what did you think of Krobe Cat's video about Watch Dogs?
So there's some stuff where I think it's like I'll agree with some stuff. Like I remember when I was working on it, there was a point when we were the thing I will always agree with is the gas station explosion. There's like we used to like sort of run it every so often, say like, are we at E3 level again? No, we're not. And we never were. I don't really know the reason for that, for why the gas station wasn't the same as, it was at E3. I'm assuming because it was sort of set up for a very specific scenario and we needed something to be systemic in the final game. But the rest of the stuff, like some of it, like is obviously like, yeah, some concessions were made to make something like that is, a full world rather than just like a chunk of a world. Like a level, like an open world compared to a level. If you think about it like that, like there's obviously going to be some changes there. Some stuff, obviously, I don't really understand why some of it changed. Some of it, like, probably changed for the better because it was more dynamic. But some of it's obviously a bit pedantic, and it doesn't matter that much.
I wonder if, like, a lot of like AAA games would actually benefit from dropping the open world like thing. If they went back to doing not open world games, and then they had like more control of the stuff they're making, and they feel like they had to, fill it out less or something.
It's hard to say because the problem is those games do really well. There's a reason why everyone like jumped on it. Like I was working at Midway when Midway closed, and at the time, like all of the projects that were on the sort of like the roster of games that were going to come out in the future if Midway were to carry on, it was all open world stuff. It was like, imagine character scenario plus city. So there was one where you were a criminal, it was in Chicago. There was one where you were a superhero, it was in San Francisco. It was all like, imagine a thing in a place. It just had a roster. Some of them had IPs, like I think they had a World War Z one on the cards and stuff. But like R1 was it was a cyberpunk city. It was a fictional city that we were doing. Cyberpunk sort of, you were a cop in a cyberpunk environment. And there were just loads of them, and you could tell it's just because everyone knew it was going to be huge, and that stuff just became standard. I think things would change if they stopped making money. That's what it comes down to.
It seems like it's never going to end because I don't know. I feel like they're still doing like open world games generally, so it's interesting. I wonder when it's going to end, or if it's even just like never going to end. I don't know.
Yeah, like when will military shooters stop being the thing that everyone wants to play? The answer is always when it stops making money.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for coming on. It was cool to get like different perspective, just like professional level designer and stuff.
Yeah, someone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.